Have you ever heard of Ehud? Okay, sweet. All right, well, I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to read the story of him, and I'm going to kind of do it the way that Southern Baptist preachers do, where they read it and stop and make a comment, you know. I think when I get to heaven, if they give you like a DVD or a DVR rewind of things in the Bible you can watch, like this is going to be one of the first ones on my DVR list. Like I want to see who plays him, you know, like what does he look like, what are the accents, because a lot of it, I mean, it's kind of James Bondish. But back in the book of Judges, verse 12, it says, once again the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and because they did this evil against the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel. So then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, like, this dude's killing us here. So he gave them a deliverer. And we're not told what he did for a living. We're not told how old he was. We're not told anything about him except for this. He was a left-handed man, the son of Gera the Benjamite. That's all we know. We don't know what his proficiencies. We don't know how he was trained. We don't know if he's a shepherd or what. But he chose him to be the deliverer. So the Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now, this is the way they paid their taxes back then. Once a year, instead of getting, you know, they didn't have paychecks for stuff to get withdrawn out of. Once a year, they'd have to take all their taxes, because sometimes it'd be food, sometimes it'd be grain, sometimes it'd be animals, sometimes it would be money or gold or precious stones. So they would get all these guys and they would put them on their shoulders and they'd walk it into the king. So they figured this would be the best time for him to deliver them, was to go in undercover. So we're talking, you know, Jack Bauer, MacGyver, he's getting in there undercover. It says, now, Ehud, he made a double-edged sword about 1.5 feet long. So a little bit longer than my elbow here to the fingertip is what they generally measure in the Bible as the length of this sword. He presented the tribute to the king of Moab. So he comes in, he's like, here you go, man, this is what we got. And then it says just a really interesting thing. He said he presented the tribute to the king, who was a very fat man. Like, I just love that detail. Like, I could just picture Jabba the Hutt or, like, some sort of deal. Like, he's a very fat man. We're about to find out just how fat. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent away the men who carried it. So he's like, all right, guys, I got this. You can go on home. And he turned back and said, I have a special secret message for you, O king. I got something I just want, just me and you. So the king said, quiet, and he left all his attendants. So it's just one big fat man and a left-handed man. So Ehud approached him while he was sitting alone in this upper room of his summer palace and said, I have a message for God for you. I would love to know if he had an accent, because that would be like, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepared to die. But anyway, so the king rose from his seat, and Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, plunged it into the king's belly. And the king's belly was so big that it sucked the entire sword out of his hand, and then fat rolled over the end of the sword. Like, it just like absorbed. That's how fat this man was. And it says, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out of the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. Now, I'm going to pause here. We're going to come back and finish. But the reason he got through security, I mean, this is terrible TSA. I mean, none of the scanners caught this. He's got a sword, the length, I mean, this long. It's got a way you walk, it's got to change just a little bit. But he got through security, and the reason was, as in most cultures up until 30, 50 years ago, everybody was right-handed. And if you weren't right-handed, they made you right-handed. Some of you know friends at school, and if you were a left-handed writer, they made you change which hand you wrote with. No different back then. So when you would walk into the palace to get frisked, to go through the guys, where would they check? They would check where you would grab. So they frisked him down his left leg. So he's got this sword over here. Very different. That's how he got through the security. So anyway, so he does this to the king. He closes and locks the doors behind him and walks out. After he had gone, the servants came and found the doors of the upper room locked. They said, he must be relieving himself in the inner room of the chamber, which apparently they think took a while for this man. They waited to the point of embarrassment. But then when they went, the doors were still locked, and then they got afraid. So they saw their Lord fallen on the floor dead. So they thought this guy was taking a dump. And they're like, okay, 1 magazine, 2 magazine. You know, like they're like, okay. They finally got like, something's up. And they go in, they find out he's been dead this whole time. Well, Ehud took this opportunity. He left the castle because everyone's focused on that and waiting for the king and when are we going to get back in here. He goes out, rallies a bunch of guys outside the city. They come in, take over the city. And it said that he and the Israelites killed 10,000 men. And it says that their men were very strong, or they were stout. They were warriors. So these 10,000 men, by surprise, all led from a guy who used his wrong leg, or wrong arm, or however you want to explain it, to go in after this very fat man. Israel, it says, after this attack that he went in there, Israel had peace for 80 years. So in the span of probably 2 hours of this guy going in, killing a fat man, running out, and then killing the other guys, he gave peace to a whole country for 80 years. What I want to talk to you about is a lot of times we think that we expect in Christianity for there to be a professional soldier to go in and take out our enemies. We expect for pastors to have courage. We expect for missionaries to want to witness to people. We expect that worship leaders would be all up in worship when we're not. The way we're raised, a lot of us, the American church, is that there's this caste system, that there's like professional Christians, and then there's the rest of us. I remember when I was a kid, my dad was a pastor, my wife's dad was a missionary, and I've heard both my dad and my father-in-law pray over me. I remember my dad on the way to school, and they'd say, "Dear God, if there's any way that you could call him to be a pastor, we would just feel so blessed." And it was this idea, and I didn't think about it as a kid, you know. You just want to do what your dad wants you to do until you're about 10, 12 years old. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm going to be a pastor, you know. But the idea was that there is some special place, that you can achieve some special echelon, that you can get out of your caste, as they would say over in India, and that you would be some sort of different Christian. And I've seen Christians with this mindset pursue going into ministry, not because God called them to go into ministry, but they thought that that was the highest. Once I got to be a professional Christian, once I got a paycheck for this, then like I'm somewhere different in heaven, I'm somewhere different in this world. But the fact of the matter is most of us may have a greater impact for the kingdom than people who get a paycheck for what they do for God. Woody, as many of you know, Woody didn't even take a paycheck at Blue Ridge until a few years ago, because he didn't want people to think, "Oh, well, you're paid to tell me that." He didn't want people to think, "Well, you're just trying to get my money." And that's an advantage that we have, because people see us in work clothes. They see us coming in off the job with our dirty clothes, or all buttoned up if you've got an office job, or me in this if you work in your basement. We have an impact that other people don't. And it's not just what we do. I mean, it could be our stories. Some of you have been through just harrowing divorces. Some of you have been children of abuse. Some of you have been through situations that are very painful to talk about. And we've heard those stories around these tables. Some of you have, seen your friend die. Chris's story Sunday of seeing one of his buddies in Iraq die. He has a story that very few people can relate to. But those people in that situation, I can imagine the witness he could have for Christ in the military, with guys who lost a friend, go, "What do I do now?" He say, "Well, I'll tell you what I did after that." He has a place in time, and he has talents, he has experiences that he can leverage for God. Now, the call for us is, we're all this way. I don't think any of us in this room are on the church payroll. None of us do this. We don't show up for Sunday and it's a work day. For most of us, Sunday is a day off. So how do we leverage what we have? How do we look at what is made up? And I'm going to give us a little homework to take home tonight. On the back side of the questions, instead of having one sheet to pass around, tonight every one of us is going to get a piece of paper, because there's 4 questions on the front, and you'll probably only get around 1 or 2 of them each. And as the guys who are normally at my table know, I like to give you multiple choice. So if there's one where God's pounding on your heart, answer that one. But you can take all 4 home. And on the back is an assessment of different places in your life that God can use. Maybe it's an interest. Maybe it's a sport. Maybe like Greg. Maybe it's hang gliding. Maybe it's, I don't know, whatever your passion is. Maybe it's running. Maybe some of the things that you are taking part of in life. I look back to those years when I was a pastor's kid, and I used to sit. We had a bay window, kind of a coffee table that sat out and looked, and the road in front of my house was the main road into Ocean City, Maryland. And according to the little, ticker thing that they put on the road, 250,000 cars passed my house every weekend. And I sat prime spot looking at it. And I would just sit there at night until I could memorize cars by their taillights, by their headlights, by their shape at night. I knew cars inside and out. I wanted to be a car designer when I grew up. But the car design school was $30,000 a year. So I did not pursue that career. But I love these cars. And all my life I was told that's an unholy passion. That's a secular thing. There's no cars in heaven. Why are you hung up with that? And I really struggled with that. I drew, back in junior high and high school, I probably drew 400 or 500 original designs. Like that's what I picture my life, is designing cars. And I went to college, I went into something else, I got into life, and I never really picked up that whole car thing other than the cars I purchased for myself. And then I came to Blue Ridge and we had a parking team. And I get to look at cars and play with cars and